all know that Nestle has, of course, been ahead of the curve even at a time like this, and whether it be essentials or other categories, they've continued to see a demand through and through. Suresh, before we dive into business and, of course, the economy, I want to understand how gradually things are coming back to normal, whether it be in the office, whether it be on the shop floor. Are you seeing a sense of normalcy return?
Since the last time that I had spoken to Nikunj, I think which was just after the lockdown, when the situation was a lot more chaotic in some sense, we are now in much calmer waters. I'm happy to inform you, Aabha, that all our 8 factories are operational. We are upwards of 70-75% of the capacities that they are meant to be. I believe that all our suppliers, many of them are MSMEs, and I had a particular hope that we are able to keep them all afloat. I am happy to inform you that all our suppliers, by and large, have started up. We have helped them to start up as well, whether it is in terms of permissions or whether it is in terms of training on sanitation, on safety, on social distancing. I think we play a role not just as a large company, but in a sense we are like a banyan tree, and we need to ensure that everyone who's working with us is also suitably empowered and suitably trained for this situation. So the supply lines are far improved. Almost 90% to 95% of our distributors are back to work. Almost 85 to 90% of our frontline sales force, which is our distributor sales people, loaders, merchandisers, etc., they're also back to work, albeit in a restricted format in some of the places, but they are back to work. All our distribution centers are also operational, and we have almost 1,500 to 2,000 people each day who come into these distribution centers nationally, and they are carrying on the task of feeding our distributors and also receiving the stocks from our factories. So it has been a long, tough, arduous road. Again, want to thank all the authorities at the state level for being understanding, for being receptive. I think credibility and trustworthiness is important in any context. Certainly in a crisis, it is even more important. And I am blessed to be leading the Nestle team and the Nestle family. And as I keep telling my colleagues, in a crisis, you don't run a company, you serve a family. And I think this is really what we have been trying to do.
So nice to hear that, and I think that explains why, even from a shareholder standpoint and from an investor standpoint, Nestle is such a formidable stock and is demanding and commanding that P multiple. Now, you spoke about supply side issues which had come up because of lockdown, which have got challenged, which have now got streamlined. What about demand side? The lockdown experience, in a sense, has been an experience where some consumers were forced to buy, some consumers may not buy, and some consumers may decide to clearly change their preference brand depending on availability and affordability. On the demand side, now that lockdown has got lifted partially, what are the trends which you are seeing?
Very good question, Nikunj. If I look at it in very broad terms, and these are not kind of definitive trends, but these are early trends, and I hope that we continue to see more during as the COVID pans out. Trend number one very clearly is a very obvious one, that there is a greater engagement for brands in home consumption. So I think if you look at the balance between out of home versus in home, clearly and most definitively, brands and the relevance of brands, if they have a relevance in home consumption, then clearly the in home resonance has played up very much stronger during this pandemic. Okay. If you look at all the town classes, from metros to town class 1, 2, 3, 4, we have seen continuously fairly strong growths in tier 2, tier 3 and tier 4 towns and semi-urban areas. I think this has been a secular trend now that we've observed for some time. And I would say even in the current context, the smaller towns are tending to hold up because the degree of restrictions that they've been facing has been lower as compared to large metros like Delhi or Mumbai or some of the unfortunately afflicted cities like Indore and others. So to some extent, I think I would be entitled to say that the rural markets would probably start to revive better. Agricultural growth, as you know, has been predicted at about 3%, which is also augurs well as far as the economy is concerned. With the Manrega and with the opening up of more rural jobs, some of this money will hopefully come into consumption. And I believe that rural India will probably revive a bit better than what the big boys, the urban markets, would be doing. But it is important to realize that urban markets are still a significant mainstay of consumption. So I don't think we can any large corporate in the FMCG sector can survive without having reasonably strong urban growths. But yes, rural will revive. I think we have got a fairly strong portfolio, even though we are seen as a strong urban company. We have about a fourth of our sales still coming out of rural markets, where we have been strengthening every single quarter. So we will have the benefit of some of the initiatives that we are taking, especially around the clusters, to really identify those geographies where we are seeing the early green shoots of an uptick in consumption, and really working on that towards the rest of this year to pick up and to mop up whatever growth opportunities we get.